All right. Are we on the air? Hold on. Let's just double check. Hello, everybody. Yep, looks like we're good. How's everybody doing out there? It is Wednesday night, Thursday night.
Who knows?
You gotta get
Wednesday.
closer to the mic.
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay, so I'm Ryan.
I'm Monica.
Yeah, and welcome to Teenagers, Toddlers, and Twins. All right. Hello, everybody. How are you? Welcome to Teenagers, Toddlers, and Twins. I'm here with my wife, Monica. We are sharing a microphone on this evening. So if you can't hear us, just let us know. That's our bad. We're giving this a go, and hopefully it works out. So say hi, Monica.
Hi.
How's everything going?
It's middle of the week, so we're hanging in there.
Why don't you tell everybody what we're going to be talking about tonight?
We're going to talk about if you should be monitoring your child's social media presence.
Absolutely, probably not what I was saying we were going to talk about all week. I didn't say anything about social media presence.
With their phone.
Well, with the phone.
Yeah.
Get closer to the mic.
With their phone. Basically, that's what they do.
Social media presence, but we just wanted to talk about the teenager and the cell phone because it's bigger than that.
Well, yes. Definitely, it's a whole new thing.
You gotta get closer.
Definitely a whole new thing.
Well, why don't you tell them about what happened when it came time for us to look in Alexis's cell phone? And if everybody's watching again, let us know if there's volume in the chat. We're giving this a go here, and I apologize. We're winging it right now with the audio because I thought that I had something lined up, and it doesn't appear that that's going to work out. So we're going to be sharing a mic.
Initially, what happened when I had suggested about you looking at Alexis's phone?
Yeah.
You want to know parts of it.
I was scared.
Fear. Yes. Fear of what?
Fear of, listen, all right, so in my defense, and again, we're going to have to go back and forth, all right? In my defense, okay, I still see this little girl. I still see this little girl. All right, I still see this little girl.
Her head is so big.
Her head is massive. But I blinked, and now she's this little girl.
She's not little.
She's not little at all, by any means. You and her share clothes. So it's hard for me. And Monica even asked me the other day when we were talking about the situation that took place with the cell phone when I was, let's say, hesitant to look at the cell phone, when I was a little bit like, no, I'm not ready for this. No. What could possibly be wrong? What could possibly be in her cell phone that could be detrimental to her mental health or her physical health, right? I was aware of the dangers of, like Monica said, social media, and the cell phone is a powerful thing. And as we all know, with great power comes great responsibility. But she was like 12.
I'm pretty sure she was like 10.
All right. So she was like 10 and she had a cell phone. And it came time to check it. She was going through some, let's say, drama with some of her friends. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I think I probably would have taken more of the initiative to check out the cell phone if I didn't have Monica. But I did have Monica, so I kind of hid behind Monica. So tell everybody the whole process.
So here's how let's connect this. Here's how I see this, in my opinion. And because we have this unique look at teenagers, toddlers, and twins, I think we can look at this from a overall arching situation. As a parent, you're responsible for your child. You're responsible for their physical, emotional, and social well-being. As a baby, that's easy. You do 100%. They need you for their physical, to feed them, to change them. They need you for their emotional, when they cry, to comfort them. And then socially, you introduce them to things as they grow developmentally. You are 100%. As they get older, maybe Jade's age as a toddler, your percentage starts to go down. Okay. And their percent of responsibility as a human being, as an individual, starts to go up. So for Jade, we still need to provide food for her physically, provide clothes, provide all the things that she needs for physical health. But she starts to um, allow herself to have some independence over some of those things as she grows, right? Emotionally, she's learning about feelings, so she's taking ownership of some of her feelings and growing within her percentage of responsibility of how she reacts to things. Then you fast forward to Alexis's age, and even take it when she started with the cell phone, 10, 11, 12. Our responsibility as a parent is still there. So emotionally and socially, we have to support them. And that is hard to do if you don't know what's going on. And in this world, what's going on happens in their cell phones. So if you're not looking at the cell phone and they're not sharing it with you, then you are not being responsible to for their social and emotional wealth health. Take it like this: when I was in school at Alexis's age and something happened to me in school, I could close the door to school, leave school, come to home, and have a break from it. And whether I chose to tell my parents or not, or vented to a friend, I kind of got it off my chest and I can move on from it. That doesn't happen these days with phones, because whatever drama happened in school may follow you home and all night long. But if your child sucked into the phone and into that drama, and you don't know what's going on, you don't know how to support them or teach them how to go through it. Nobody's saying that drama's not going to happen. It's certainly going to happen, and it's a part of their developmental cycles. But we have to also be responsible as parents to support them. And if they're not going to tell us, then you need to get into their phone and figure out what's going on. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I agree. It's funny because I agree, like overall. I agree. I agreed before this situation happened. I agreed before we needed to start taking action and monitoring the cell phone and the social media and things like that. It's funny how, like, I would be so willing to do it in my head, and then when it came time to do it, I was like, what am I going to see? What am I going to read? What am I gonna find? And I legitimately had fear that froze me to the core. And again, thank goodness that you were here. And I don't know if any of other dads or moms or anybody have gone through this. Like, well, Monica also asked me, like, would it be different if it was the boys? Like right now in my head, I'm, saying like, yes, it probably would be different if it was the boys. And maybe that's like, listen, I have girls and I have boys. Okay. I could tell you right now, I would put my money on my girls. Heaven forbid they had to get into an altercation with a male. All right. Alexis, especially, she's a brute. But for some reason, it's when it comes to my daughters, Alexis, obviously, I'm just like, oh man, like I'm not ready to see whatever the next stage is. And again, I know that, you know, I believe everything was all right for the most part, right? We learned a few things, but she wasn't into drugs. She wasn't talking to the wrong people. It's funny, and Alexis is going to kill me if she's listening to this. She was talking to a young boy, and you found something. It said like, uh, he said something like, well, why don't you come meet me after school or something? And she wrote back like, no, my parents would kill me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, good. The fear is still there. Like she understands right and wrong. You know, she was making the right choices for the most part, but you could see the migration into adolescence through the text, through social media, through what was going on. And yeah, so again, Monica is here and she's given some great points as a teacher, as a mom, and then I'm just here to repeat myself again as a dad. I just was like, frozen to my core. And I wish there was somebody else here, another dad. If there's any dads watching, type in the chat. All right, tell me if you ever had to experience this with your children and the cell phones. Maybe the girls or the boys. Maybe I got it wrong. Maybe I will freeze when it comes to the boys. But as far as the cell phone, yeah, it took me a minute.
And it doesn't have to be like a punitive thing every time you find something. The kids are going to mess up. The kids are going to handle things incorrectly, and they need to learn from the ways that they handle things incorrectly. It doesn't have to be a punishment every time you find something that's like, but you need to be mindful of the things that cross the line and pull the kid back. But you can also use them as a parent responsible for their social and emotional health, teaching moments for how to handle things correctly, or just to have a conversation starter for this person said this to me and or sent this particular thing to me and I don't feel comfortable with it. What do I do? And those are teachable moments as a parent and a child. And the reason why I felt so strongly about Alexis at that time was because Alexis was around the same age of the kids that I taught or that I currently teach. And I was seeing a never ending revolving door of kids in and out of the guidance counselor for the drama that was being created with their cell phones. So I could only imagine if nobody was watching what was going on half of these kids' cell phones, what other drama out there that people just weren't talking about. And I think because she came up in that age of all of these apps and things that were coming into play, we were all learning at the same time how I'll use the word dangerous these apps could be if they weren't monitored correctly by parents, because kids simply are not developed appropriately to handle the content and the manner in which those apps are are played out. So just one example alone, most of these apps are meant for secrecy. You hide things, you hide pictures, you hide conversations and pictures go away. It's meant to, and so if you're trying to hide all of these things, then we have a problem. And kids need to understand how that can cause problems within their friends or just in the world. Um, but again, if you're not on top of what's going on, you don't know how to address that as a parent. And a lot of it was falling on the schools because we were on the front lines of the drama that was occurring and then coming into the school and a kid telling a teacher or a kid telling a guidance counselor, or God forbid a few cases that I was a part of where the police were involved. So I just never wanted Alexis to be wrapped up in that because it's just she was just going with whatever the technology was taking her.
Yeah, and I just want to say real quick, and I don't mean to start an entirely different podcast, but what about adults? I would say that adults can't handle the power of social media at
No,
times.
just and okay, so for a middle schooler who's using Snapchat for things that or not just Snapchat. Well, yeah, we'll use Snapchat because things disappear. For a middle schooler, it's like, oh, I can send this and kind of get away with it because it'll disappear and nobody will know. Well, apply that to an adult and you have cheating involved where your wife or your husband's never going to find out about that because it disappeared. Or Facebook has hidden message, what's it called? Secret messages.
Secret conversations.
What secret conversations, which are buried in other conversations. I don't use those things. So it's even hard for me to find a regular message that somebody sends me when they want to buy something that I've posted as like a toy or whatever.
You can't even send links.
I'm like, where is that?
You're not even good at sending links.
Yeah. But like there's this whole hidden underworld of secrecy that comes along with these social media platforms.
It's so funny you say that because I didn't even realize or think about it until you said about responsibility and teenagers and social media, and I'm just like, wow, look at how everybody, like people we know, like adults who have reacted in such a manner due to current events and things with the pandemic and this and it. Like people are just wild.
Well, it connects you. Social media is a beautiful thing, the fact that it connects people, but it's also has dug up a lot of negativity where it has connected you to people from your past that maybe you shouldn't have been connected to in the present. And then you have people going astray to like their boyfriend from high school, that they haven't seen in 20 years, but still had a fire for them. And then it reignites just from a simple chat. And then your chat turns into a secret chat because you, you feel the line being crossed there, and then it's crossed and you're gone, and there you go.
Yeah, I remember, and just so everybody knows, it started out as the teenager in the cell phone, but we're moving on to some other very interesting topics. So I was 19. I was 19, and I remember I was coaching at the time, coaching a women's class. It was a women's kickboxing class in the morning. A bunch of moms, cool moms, hip moms, whatever. And I asked, they started talking about Facebook, and I was like, "What's Facebook?" And they were like, "Oh, no, no."
Mhm.
And then the one mom came out from the restroom, and they were like, "Pam, you know about Facebook?" And she was like, "Oh, Facebook is bad." And like thinking back to that exact moment when Facebook wasn't nearly what it is now, there was trouble on the rise, or you could see it
Well,
on the horizon that suddenly it's like, "Oh, hey, I'm just gonna add you to my friends list. I haven't talked in a while. Oh, I see you got a husband. How's it going?" Whatever.
but back it up to its original intent. When yeah, I'm a little older than you, where I I am.
By like 4 minutes.
No, like 2 years. Um, I was in college, and the intent to kind of connect to the people you kind of just left, what, 1, 2, 3, maybe years ago in high school, and you all kind of went off to different colleges. That was cool because then you're like, oh, let's see what so and so's doing down the street.
But tell them the truth about how your college wasn't allowed right at the beginning.
When Facebook first started, you had to have a college, university email address to sign up, but only certain college email addresses were accepted. Mine was a small school, it was not. So we had friends that went to Penn State down the road, about a half hour down the road, and they were talking about this Facebook thing, and we couldn't get on because they didn't accept Lockhaven's email address. So it started out very small, and I think with good intent, and then boom, it blew.
Yes, it blew up quickly. So
But did
now,
you even know, like, not just social media, but there are things like that look like a calculator that is really, so that you're a parent and you're like, oh, that's just if you,
oh, the apps.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you're
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
looking
I
through
heard
and
about
that's
that.
like a calculator, like, oh, well, I'm not going to look at that, but it's like a hidden spot for nude photos and things.
Yeah, I've seen it, and I've downloaded it, and just to see how it works.
Yeah, okay.
No, but seriously, out of curiosity, I downloaded it because I saw it on like maybe like a mass email from Alexis's school or something, and it was like, oh, this app is so and so, and I was like, let me
Mhm.
see about this app. And yeah, so anyway, so let's jump back to teenagers and cell phones and things of that nature. So Alexis did have an issue. We won't go into too many details because I don't remember them. All right, but we will. I want. I think this one's important. So there was an issue with Snapchat, and she had given out her password. So let's just say before we go any further, adults, teenagers, don't give anybody your password. Don't give your best friend your password. Shit can go wrong. Life can change. You can stop talking to that person. Don't give anybody your password. So Alexis said that she had given somebody her password, and this person, she told us, was writing messages and being a bully to somebody else. And we were like, we were like stuck on it. We were like, Lex, you have to own up. You have to own up. Like we were convinced it was Alexis, and it wasn't Alexis. Alexis ended up showing us that it was in fact her friend or ex-friend now who had taken her password and started cyberbullying people. And Alexis got in trouble at school even, and I just remember being absolutely furious that my child was now in trouble for something she didn't do. I think just like any other person would be. And I said, I want to have a meeting with the principal and I want to have a meeting with the guidance counselor. And I started acting a fool and things of that nature. Now, I don't normally act that way anymore, or I try not to. But I remember when we had the meeting, everybody was kind of talking to me like I was the idiot. And I was like, no, 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 no. Stop it. They kind of wanted to act like they didn't play a part in the whole issue, that they didn't accuse Alexis, that they didn't ruin her week, and this, that, and the other thing. And then I remember the guidance counselor, whoever it was, said, "We don't take action in regards to social media issues unless it impedes on the child's school day or school week or whatever," right? And then the conversation kept going on and whatever. And they still wanted to dismiss it. And then um, I said, "Well, Alexis has had a long week. The guidance counselors have been interrogating her. The teachers have been interrogating her. They said they didn't believe her. We're proving to you now that it wasn't her. And now you all want to drop it." And they say, "Well, we feel like we can move on." And I was like, "But you just said if it impedes on the child's school day." And I remember she choked, like she couldn't figure out what to say next. And I was like, "All right, listen, we could go in circles all day here. Like, let's just move on. All right. I'm willing to move on so long as Alexis isn't in any trouble and we can forget about it. She won't speak to this girl anymore. Lesson learned. Don't give out your passwords, all that fun stuff." And we moved on. But, all right, teacher, is there compassion nowadays when it comes to cell phones and social media, things of that nature?
No.
Oh, oh, tell us about it. I want to know
It's
why there's no compassion from the schools.
no, don't say it like that. It's just so much bigger than that. Like, it's so much bigger. It infiltrates every part of their day. So I mean, it's almost like if that case were to happen now, you just roll your eyes and move on because it's just another day.
So you're kind of callous.
No, yeah, that
But
was
I mean that in
I
in
know,
a
I know.
positive way
That was the beginning
of social media and phones.
of educators educating themselves on social media, parents educating themselves on social media apps, learning how they all work. Like, what do you mean the picture goes away? What do you mean, like, the conversation goes away? What do you mean you can tell when somebody screenshots it? Like, that was the beginning of learning how these things even work. So they were hard to investigate in the beginning because you just didn't know. And now there's so many different apps and ways they work and how they work and who can sign into this and who's on this group chat and who's in this group and who said what. It's so far gone that it's hard to even follow.
Well, I actually my next question was going to be, and I wanted to wait because you say I interrupt people, even though I don't think I do. Richard, if you're listening, do I interrupt people? You can comment in the comment section. I, all right. So, but I think at this point in society, and you're the teacher, you deal with teenagers all day long, right? I think at this point where we are in society, I mean, can't we expect the teenagers and the parents to have a better idea of the power that the cell phone and the apps hold, or
Oh yeah,
or do we still always have to get around that learning curve?
no, I think there's always I think that's there's always gonna it's always gonna be a little bit ahead of us, right? Just because technology moves so quickly. It's always going to be a little bit ahead. But I think the adults in the scenario have caught up enough to understand the concepts of how the things work at the basic level. And unfortunately, once you've caught up to how Snapchat works, then TikTok comes out. Then, remember back in the day, it was Musically, and Alexis was doing all those, right? And we'd be down the shore, and Poppy would be looking at her like, and then we had to take away Musically a couple times because we saw her do
Forgot about Musically.
We were like, don't do that in a bathing suit. Don't dance for the world in a bathing suit at 11 years old. Like, don't do that. And you know, and then Musically turned into like a TikTok, and then so like once you get caught up, and then it takes a couple more steps ahead of you. So you're always trying to catch up. But the concept of how things work at the basic level, people understand, adults understand now. So also mixed in with that has been a big push in schools for education for students about digital citizenship. And that means that they learn how what they say and what they do makes a mark, okay? And it will be there forever. So, like, when I was in college, they always threatened you, like, oh, be careful what you put on Facebook because so and so could see it, blah, blah, blah. And then we went through the phase of people actually losing their jobs because of what they put on Facebook and stuff. And those examples, unfortunately, have turned into lessons for the kids these days to be like, this is not a fallacy. This is not something people just tell you, like, this could happen. This did happen, and it will happen to you. And so those who have become actually like curriculum lessons in schools so that kids, because the social media is not going away. You can't take away.
We have a special guest, ladies and gentlemen, Jade. That's why it's called Teenagers, Toddlers, and Twins, because we do have a teenager, toddlers, and twins, and this one is fighting sleep at the moment. Come here.
So nowadays we have been able to teach the kids what they do, what they say, how it affects people, how it will stick around forever, and to be mindful of that when you put things out there. Can we help you, miss? Do you want a cell phone like Sissy? Mm-hmm.
Are you ready for a cell phone like Sissy?
Sissy.
What do you want to do with a cell phone?
Call some friends.
Call some friends?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Vinny.
Like Vinny. Whoa. We're not calling boys.
Whoa, hold on. We're talking about the teenager in the cell phone. Let's talk about the toddler in the cell phone wanting to call Vinny. Why do we want to call Vinny? What are you going to talk to Vinny about?
What?
Baby shark?
Yeah.
All right, you need to go to bed. Kiss.
Hungry.
Give her a kiss.
Hungry.
Go get some fruit snacks.
Go get some fruit snacks.
Some gummies.
All right, so there you have it. The toddler now wants to talk to Vinny via her cell phone. Yeah, mom's face like says it all. Like, hey, who do you want to talk to on your cell phone, Vinny?
Yeah, she could have said all the girls' names in the class. She said a boy's name.
Well, I mean, I don't know. So why don't you? Because this has always been very interesting to me. Can you update them on what your school's policy about cell phones is? Because some people who haven't had a kid in school might be surprised. Because cell phones are allowed now, right? To an extent.
Not in my school.
Oh, I thought they were allowed to keep
Some
it in case, heaven forbid, something.
I mean, they're like, our school, theoretically, is when you come into school, you're supposed to put it in your locker.
But you can have it. Because it used to be like you couldn't have it.
No,
period,
yeah.
Right?
You can have it in your locker, whatever, but you're not supposed to be on it during the school day. Different schools do different things. And again, this touches back to what I said earlier and what kids can handle developmentally. So our middle school kids, if they're wrapped up in all this drama during the day, developmentally, they might not be able to handle that and still proceed with their day. Whereas high school kids can maybe take the hit on the chin and move on throughout their day. And so you see more high schools where they're allowed to have the cell phones on their person and you can text them. Like that's, sometimes Alexis will text right back or something like that at 10:30 in the morning. Like they're allowed to permit at some schools. And developmentally, that could make sense. Middle school kids still do not have that developmental piece to really handle two things at
Just
once.
get your snack and go to sleep, please, baby. Thank you.
Yes, you can pinch and pull.
Sorry, we're talking to Jade right now because we're trying to get her to go to sleep.
All right, bring it here.
Bring it here real quick. Teenagers, toddlers, and twins. This is what you get when you film after the mom takes the kid to Target, which is, as Marissa would say, our friend Marissa, that's another podcast. Target runs, Targin runs.
Targins.
We interrupt this broadcast to open up Jade's gummy snacks.
Wow.
Get out! Get out! Get out! Sorry, no. So, yes, we interrupted to open up Jade's gummy snacks. But, yeah, so another thing, okay, if you don't use the app Life360, okay, I'm not getting paid by them, right? I wish I was. But, so I told my daughter, Alexis, it's not, if you want to start walking places and this and that, like further distances, I really try to meet her halfway, right? Because she's getting older. I think that's fair. She's 15. She's going to be driving soon. It hurts me to say that because sometimes I can't believe that I'm still here after all the crap I pulled when I was driving. Monica's not shocked because she still gets tickets like
once a month, maybe.
once a month, whether it be Easy Pass or Camden County or listen, my foot is just heavy. New York. Oh man, New York, New Jersey, everybody was after me.
You lost your license in PA.
I lost my license. I lost my PA license in New York. Got my car towed in New York. Had my sister come pick me up.
The car was towed in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, in New Jersey. Had my sister come pick me up because I was like, "There's no way I'm telling my wife right now that I got my car towed while I could still see New York. I turned around, I could still see the lights. I was that close to the city." But anyway, okay, so Life 360 is an app where you can track your children, you can see their battery life, you can see like where they've been. So it's not just like point to point to point, like you're like, oh, they were here, they were here. Like you can actually see the path that they took. So I think it's a great app, Life 360. If you're a parent, right? It's at any age. If you're a parent and your name is on that freaking insurance or that car, or they're living under your roof, or you have your name and something that's theirs, make them download Life 360 and figure out where they're going.
You know you're late to the game on that.
I'm very late. I'm late to the game on like everything.
A lot of my friends at work have been using that for years, and then it has that like distinct ring of when someone got home, and they'll be like, "Oh, your kid's home," because like they'll hear it.
Who interrupted who now? All right. So anyway, so Life 360 even tells me the battery life. Like by 2 p.m. or 3 p.m., her battery has like 2 or 3% charge.
Because they're on their phones.
Because they're on their phones, right? And me, I'm like, she needs a new phone. She needs a new phone. And then Monica goes, she doesn't need a new phone. She's using it too much. And I'm just like, yeah, you're probably right. So listen, we're talking about the dangers of the cell phone. There's very few positives for the cell phone for anybody, adult, adolescent, toddler. That's my honest belief, right? Because for the most part, if as far as necessities go, do we need a cell phone? Yes, right? I mean, you can do so much with your cell phone, but man, can it bring you trouble no matter how old you are. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is just like cell phones are here to stay, like, right? I mean, and I'm bringing up the battery life because the usage is there. I'm on my cell phone. Monica's not on her cell phone as much. Alexis is on her cell phone. I know other people that are on their cell phones. I mean, and you all know. You see the Facebook, you see the memes. You know, if you're people watching, you look up in a crowded area, and when there's nothing to do, everybody's glancing at their cell phones. Everybody looks at their cell phones, right? So, cell phones are here to stay, and we just need to kind of like live with it, I guess, right? We need to adapt.
And like how this podcast started, you need to be responsible for yourself and for your kids.
Okay, so let me ask you this. When Jade, all right, because it's a different living situation with Alexis right now, just so everybody knows. When Jade has a cell phone, or acts as a cell phone, or James has a cell phone, are you gonna have like a pop-up cell phone check, like random cell phone search? How are you gonna run this?
I had a
search?
feeling that you would ask me that, so I had a potential answer in my head. I like the idea of parents who have like a docking station at night so that it doesn't, and we tried that with Alexis when she was younger. So that it.
I'm sorry, real quick. So the docking, like put it on the island, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So not like
it's
a charger.
not in their room. So it's not in their room. Because they'll get sucked in and be on all night. And we like, in this house, like routine and structure, and especially at bedtime. That's why we've had kids sleeping through the night, all of them by 5 months old, because we have a nighttime routine. A cell phone should not be part of that. And where it goes, into social media, into the deep dive of things. You do it as an adult where you get into something and you're like, oh crap, it's an hour later. We got to go to bed, whatever. I like the idea of parents who have that docking station at night. And there's a little bit of leniency when it comes to the weekends and stuff like that, but I like that. Will I be checking it? 100%.
All right. So what's your like? So what would you say is a comfortable amount of research checking for the phone? Like once a week, once every 2 weeks?
I am a super nosy person. I'll check that shit every night. I feel like just because I want to know what's going on. But reasonable.
Oh, okay, so wait. So you're going to check it every night. And I'll say this is fair if you say that this is what you had in mind. When it's at the docking station. I don't want them thinking that we're on them all the time
No.
or this and that.
When I'm not going to be like, all right, 6 o'clock, guys, time for your phone check. Like, that's not how I'm going to run it. But like 7 o'clock or whatever time they go to bed and whatever time it goes on the docking station, you know, the nosy part of me wants to be like, okay, let's see what's going on. Now, with that being said, they're going to catch on like, oh, mom looks at my phone every night. So I feel that a random pop in at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon is warranted at that point, because then they can be like, oh shit, let me erase X, Y, and Z. They're kids. It's going to happen. You're going to hide things from your parents. Okay. But when I was a kid, when you were a kid, you would write notes. Okay. Like Jersey Shore style, who wrote the note? And you don't know unless you find that note, you don't know what's going on or whatever, unless someone tells you. So, which happened to me as a child. Mom found out things. So I want to still pop in to, catch them by surprise sometimes, but I don't want it to be, again, like I said, a punitive thing all the time. It could just be a conversation starter about how your child may have handled something well or not so well and how they need to fix it for next time. So
Cutting you off. So at what point are you like, or will we be like, he's a teenager, she's a teenager, I gotta let this ride. I mean, because my mindset right now, and you're all listening, all right, so you can hold me to this, 10 years, maybe sooner, like 8 years for Axe and Jade. Like,
did you forget James?
And James. Well, James is our good boy.
Yeah.
James.
You only mentioned the two bad ones.
Just so everybody knows, like, we can see Axe and James. I'm sorry, we can see Axe and Jade just like destroying each other, like pulling one another's hair. Axe will punch Jade, Jade will punch back, and then we're like, "Where's James?" And we look, and James is just like looks up with his big eyes, being the good boy, being all quiet. So anyway, like, so what point, like, what will we be like? All right, like, he's fine or she's fine. And then what will we be like? All right, listen, I checked your phone last night and this is not going to happen. Not cool at all.
It depends on the situation.
Okay, so give me an example. That's what I want to know. Talking to girls or boys in a respectful, maturing manner.
Okay, that's fine.
Right?
That's fine. Yeah. I keep saying, I'm responsible for my kid. So if I see my kid blatantly being a complete dick, then I'm going to call him out on it and be like, you are not going to be that kid. And I don't care. Don't throw 7 excuses at me about what the other kid did. I'm responsible for you as your mom. And I'm going to tell you how to handle that in a more appropriate, responsible, respectful way than being just a flat out dick.
Now the girl.
She's going to be the tough
one. The boy's 4 years older. He's 3 years older. He's 3 years older than her.
Her talking to a boy who's 3 years older than her? The problem is, I can't. But here's my point from earlier. If I don't look and if I didn't see that, I don't know what's going on. And then things could spiral out of control that I, as a parent, should know that she's even talking to a boy that's 3 years older.
So it's a conversation,
mm-hmm.
a healthy one,
mm-hmm.
right? We're not going to be yelling or screaming right off the bat.
But, then you're talking about conversation. But there's a whole world out there of visual pictures and things that needs to be addressed as well.
For the people that don't speak educator, could you tell us what you're being specific, what you're talking about?
Like when the boy says, "Send me a pic."
You let me take care of that one with them. Inappropriate, not gentlemanlike.
What about if someone says that to Jade?
Oh,
She needs to know how to respond.
so then you just go under the bed and get the cash and bail me out from the county
Right,
jail after
but
it happens.
she needs to learn how to respond to something like that because as a
Well, no,
as
wait.
a girl, you feel pressure
Hold on,
for the
real
boy
quick.
to want to like you.
No. Okay, so I get that, but you just opened up a very important and interesting can of worms. So we're talking about cell phones, we're talking about safety, we're talking about checking in, we're talking about where we're going to call them out. Now, this is something I didn't even think about, and Monica brings up responses. So let's talk about responses. You sound like you have some things on the mind, but that's awesome. What do you think? Responses.
How our kid responds to somebody else doing something.
But how the response in general is important.
Oh yeah.
Like whether they're being cyberbullied, whether they're being threatened, whether they're, like you said, someone's asking for inappropriate content.
That's what I'm saying. That's the teachable moments.
Right.
That's the moments where you sit down with your kid and you teach them how to respond in those situations because they're not going to just know. That's a part of and if they think they know, who taught them? Their buddy? Who's to say that kid knows? So Alexis, someone could send send a pic to me, right? Or to Alexis or to Jade. And as a woman, you feel the pressure to like, well, you want that boy to like you and you want to please them and you don't want them to go away because you want them to be your boyfriend and you're trying to catch them and you're trying to get them and right? You're on the chase. And so you kind of feel
real quick, was that like real content, or were you just like quoting a Britney Spears song? You want to catch him, you want to like him, you don't want to let him go. All right, no,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're talking about serious topics, but she was like,
I'm trying to make you feel it.
Bars.
Trying to make you feel it.
Bars.
So anyway, so as a girl, they need to know how to respond to that. Is it with a picture? No, but if the advice comes from their girlfriend and say, what's the big deal? Just send a picture. It goes away anyway. Never goes away. That's what they need to learn.
You remember that? Sorry, I'm asking her if she can talk about something on the air.
Yeah, when you're with all these kids and these girls, you hear parents talk, you hear situations go on, and there's been situations about girls who were sending pictures like that of themselves to boys their age. It wasn't like some 32-year-old creeper looking for a picture of a 14-year-old girl, although that can happen too. But it was like kids their age, and they were sending nude photos to each other and they didn't realize or they didn't care that those were being saved, even though you think you're sending them in Snapchat and they're going away. Those are being saved. And sometimes the obsession with the cell phones goes so deep that one girl didn't even care about the picture that, all of these people saw. She just didn't want her cell phone to be taken away.
So what does that say? Is that like a new mentality? Is that an isolated situation? You're the educator. So Monica has the privilege as if you're a teacher, or if you work with, I'd say even hospitality, even. But obviously when you're an educator, so scratch hospitality, not a good example. When you're an educator, you see the times change. You have to change with the times. You are forced to get better at your job, right? If we're in a business like a hotel or Target, retail, something like that, the way we adapt is to the consumer. How do we make it easier? How do we reach them? We change the logo to fit the times, right? But when you're a teacher, you see the times changing before Target and everybody else catches up. So Monica has had the privilege, I'll say, of witnessing the times change, right? So if that was you would have been embarrassed that there were pictures of you out there, right? You wouldn't have even cared about the phone. Now, is that an isolated situation where this young lady just cared about her phone, or is that like the new mentality, like, don't take my phone, don't take my phone?
I have an easy answer to this one. It's not just kids either.
Okay.
It's adults too. It's an addiction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's an addiction.
Yeah.
You're addicted to your phone. We do it all the time. We've been watching SVU, right, on Hulu though, but we don't have the crazy subscription service. So there's commercials. Every single time there's a commercial, we both go, on our phone.
Or when the plot gets weak.
Right. We are all addicted to the phones. So, but for someone like you, well, maybe not you, because you're definitely much more present on social media than a lot of other people. And but for us, we don't depend on our phone. Maybe it's our age, maybe it's the way we grew up for all of our interpersonal relationships. We don't depend on it. These kids depend on their phone to be connected to their friends and the world. Especially now in the pandemic where they're sitting at home by themselves, a lot of them.
Yeah, like Monica and I FaceTime, and then Alexis is like, hold on, guys. I got a FaceTime. And she answers and she goes, hey. And there's like 10 faces there. And we're like, whoa, how did you? I thought you could only FaceTime one person at a time. Apparently, you can FaceTime stadiums. Apparently.
Yeah, but like, I've even heard Alexis say, like to the one girlfriend who was like walking to work, right? This is how Alexis said it. Well, I'll walk with you. And she was in our living room in New Jersey. And I was like, what is she talking about? I'll walk with you. And then like 2 seconds later, here she is on FaceTime. The girl's walking to wherever she was going, like down the block, but she didn't want to walk alone. So Alexis walked with her.
Okay, so real quick, Monica is getting to something, but I want to bring up something. Parents, if your teenager has a cell phone or they're about to get a cell phone, I want to mention something that you need to be aware of. And I didn't think about it until Monica brought it up one day with Alexis. These teenagers will just let the call ride.
So, be careful when you address your teenager.
Right.
So there's someone else listening.
Right. So if there's a friend that they don't like, who you know that they're very close with or social with, like just be like pay attention, because you might be like, you're not going to so and so's this weekend, her mother or her father or her or whatever, and like she could be like right there. And then you know, even though we're the parent and that's our feelings, and perhaps we shouldn't be letting our child interact with the kid at that point. Let's face it, all right? We all had that one friend at some point where we were close with them and we wanted to hang out with them, and our parents were like against it. And, you know, there was, you know, we still hung out with them. Okay. So you may find yourself in that situation. All right. So just like be cautious about what you're saying. And me, like, you know, as I'm saying this, I'm like, no, wait, fuck that. No, like, you tell your child, do not be on FaceTime or speaker when you are around me and I'm talking freely in my own home, right? Okay, so I caught myself there, but it's something to think about, because I never thought about it. Like, listen, do you have a funny name for one of your kids' friends or something like that? And, you know, or you said something to your spouse, or you're talking about something private and there's like 10 people on the phone, right? Your kid's talking to like 10 people at the time. Just, I didn't think about it until Monica brought it up one day. Just be cautious. Like, these kids let the call ride.
Yeah, they're sometimes not even talking.
Yeah.
They're just on FaceTime with each other. Not even talking. Just propped up. They're not even in the screen.
Yeah.
They're just like off doing their own thing. And they're off doing their own thing, but they're with each other because they're on FaceTime. And yes, so you can't just like bust into your kid's room and be like, you didn't empty the dishwasher again, and blah blah blah. Because now you're the parent who's, you know, so hard on their kid because God forbid you ask them to empty the dishwasher. So like they are connected all of the time. So I actually chuckled, even though I took her. I actually chuckled when you said she needed a new phone because they kept dying. She doesn't need a new phone. She is on the phone 24/7 and on things that are taking a lot of battery power, like FaceTime. So yeah, it makes sense that her phone's dead by 2:00 because she's on it all day. And wait, time out. It might be dead at 2:00 and she didn't even wake up till 11 a.m. That's how much they're on it. So yes, it's 100% back to your question, an addiction, because it's how they connect in every which way to their friends and the world.
I have a thought, and I don't express this opinion or thought, if you will, to too many people, because I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. But what do you think about, like, let me put it this way: the cell phone obviously has more options, more ways to interact, more things to look up, easier access to information, both bad and good. But like, did your mom or your dad or your nana or whoever, like, have a Cosmo or a newspaper while they were sitting on the couch? Like, granted, like I just said, there's 100 other things you can do with a cell phone, but, like, did anybody, like, around you just sit on the couch while the TV was on and, you were there, whatever, watching the TV and they were invested in the book or the magazine or the paper? Or is that just me? Like, that's me trying to justify that we as humans have always been doing something while something else is going on.
Oh yeah, like
But
my my
again, the cell phone is much more powerful.
my Grammy was notorious for watching soap operas and reading the soap digest at the same time, and then also over here, when they used to print the program for the TV for the day,
The TV, what is it
like
called?
TV
TV guide? Yeah,
guide,
yeah,
but
TV
like
guide.
in paper form. Then
Okay.
she circled, like, yeah, she had multiple things going. So
Coupon clipping, whatever.
yeah, like I don't think that's a foreign concept at all. It's just a matter of like, um the kids never have a chance to turn off because someone's always there. Like, both of us, we had this discussion even last night, like our separate and alone time. And I might disconnect by reading a book. Um, you might disconnect. Remember when you were going on those walks and that kind of stuff? So that
Oh,
was
during
good.
quarantine?
Yeah, during
Yeah.
quarantine. I think everybody from kids on up needs to disconnect, find some time to disconnect. Um, and I don't think that is structured into now. This is where when we talked about earlier about extracurriculars, sports, hobbies, clubs, those kinds of things are a nice area for straight up interpersonal communication and connections that don't involve the phone. So you're learning the teamwork, you're learning how to work together, you're learning how to communicate to one another face to face, because some of those skills have fallen by the wayside. You're doing that in whether it be a club, a sport, or any kind of those things, because those are ingrained in the success of those activities, and it gives you that break. It gives you the break from being connected to the phone, and to the outside. All of the areas where you can dive into through the phone. You were trying to find the positives, right? Before, there are positives to cell phones. Yes, you do have quick access. Yes, you have things like Life 360, like to be able to track your kids. Like, God, if I had, like, I wouldn't have been able to sneak out when I was a kid, because not only do we have the ADT alarms and the rings and all of that, like, your parents would know if you left the house and came home. Like, those things are good as parents to have as safeguards for our kids. Being able to, call your kid and make sure that they're okay at the playground when it's the first time you're letting them go down to the playground by themselves. Like, those are good. Um, the the downfall of that is that you're putting this tool into their hand that is so powerful that even adults screw up, that you're now giving it to a 10-year-old who's still learning all of these skills, these social and emotional skills. They just developmentally don't have it. They don't have it yet. And you're giving them the world and saying, figure it out. So if you as a parent, in these like last minutes to kind of wrap up what we said from the beginning, if you as a parent are giving the world to your kid in their hands, you have to be responsible to guide them through that process. And part of that is looking at their phone to see what they're up to, what they're doing, and letting that lead to conversations about how to act appropriately in that world, in those settings, in those apps, with those friends, so that they learn what they're doing as they go through and aren't just making mistakes left and right and then getting caught into something more serious of a problem.
Right. So everything that you just said, and I agree with that. And it's funny that you just said that because for some reason, when you said like how powerful a tool is, my brain started thinking like, well, how powerful. Like we know how powerful you can find people, you can message people. Just to give people an idea of how powerful the cell phone is, if you don't know, I'm pretty sure most of you do know though. But I came home from work one day and there was this guy claiming to sell solar panels, and he walked up to our door. Right, I just pulled up and he said Monica Stillman. Her name was Oppenheimer at the point. I lost my mind. Lost my mind that he knew her name, that he was coming to my house, that he was knocking on everybody's house, that we almost got into a fist fight. I called the police, yada yada yada. So eventually, when the police caught up with him, I was there. I was present. I wanted to know how he knew her name. I should have known better. He said that he had a list of names of who lived on the block, right? So something so simple. So at first, I was like, like it's a crazy, crazy world we live in, crazy time we live in, that he can just pull a list of who lives where, this is their house, walk the block, their name, start the conversation. But we won't beat the internet, right? The only way we will beat the internet is if we go off the map, off the charts. And there's people that do that, and that's fine if that's the life they choose to live. But if you want to live in, I guess, modern society, for a lack of better terms, you have to accept that people will be able to figure out things about you. People will be able to find out where you live. Completely different podcast about being ready for whatever comes your way. And I guess the long-winded explanation or point I'm trying to get to is that for a second I was very upset about the access that the internet was, that people could get, coming as from somebody who's on their phone the entire time. But like just over the last year, would you say I've been able to calm down? Because I asked Monica, I didn't want an Alexa, I didn't want all this other stuff, right? My only fear with Alexa still is Skynet, but
Alexa, not
Alexa,
Alexis.
Alexa. I said Alexa.
I know. I'm just thinking
It's Skynet, right? If you watch Terminator, you know what Skynet is. But at the end of the day, moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandparents, guardians, we're not going to be able to beat the times. We're not going to be able to beat the cell phone. Okay, it with to quote Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. And it's more of a difficult topic when it comes to the phone, because we can't always see what's going on, because they're like this, right? They got it close to their face, and they could be looking at what they shouldn't be. Curiosity killed the cat. So
You had a lot of sayings in that whole.
yeah, I did. Sorry about that. It's like a Dr. Seuss book.
You really just popped them right out there.
But yeah, so I guess my advice, we're talking a lot about instances and things of that nature. My advice would be to to be confident in your abilities as a parent. Be confident that you are taking your child on the right path. They will possibly stray. That happens. You can do everything right. You can put them in all the sports. You can do this, that, the other thing, and then something strikes their curiosity, a person, a place, or thing, and suddenly they become obsessed with it and they want to become a part of it, or whatever the case may be. At that point, I would say that the worst thing to do is react with anger or emotion. That goes back to what Monica said about making it a lesson, right? So let's hope to God that nothing ever terrible ever happens to any of our children. If you're listening, you're watching, or in general, protect our children. But yes, it's, I think in any case, when it comes to the cell phone, if you react with emotion, you're just fighting fire with fire at that point. What do you think?
That's just basic parenting. That doesn't really even have anything to do with the cell phones. Like, and all of that just that you just mentioned is, you know, those things are gonna happen. A kid's gonna become interested in something, and you're gonna have to be mindful about and watching and keeping a close eye on kind of where that goes, with or without the cell phones. Um, your responsibility as a parent comes in with the cell phones is to be on top of what's going on, because like you said, the cell phones aren't going away, the apps aren't going away, and even more so they keep increasing and changing and evolving. I think in the beginning we tried to fight the fight of like, don't have the apps and don't, and that lasted a very short time,
Yeah.
because it's just not realistic. So then the conversation turned into, all right, let's educate our kids about how to be responsible with such power, and educate our parents about how to be responsible when dealing with kids that have such power at their fingertips all the time, and turning them into lessons both within the classrooms and at home, because you're not going to be able to avoid it altogether.
Beautiful. Like you. Well, in all seriousness, I hope that everybody who's watching enjoyed. Thank you to those of you that tuned in, especially if you commented. And we see some pretty positive comments over there. So thank you for that. Monica, this is like her. I deleted the one podcast her and I just did because it was a mess. It was just a mess. I couldn't leave it up there. We will try to circle back. But yeah, trying to get Monica back on as a frequent guest. She's beautiful. She's lovely. She's my wife. She has a lot of good input. So glad to have her back for this episode, especially one where we're talking about cell phones, which is, if for the most case, it's a joint effort between two partners, right? Okay, so happy to have Monica back. Are you happy to be back?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not as socially comfortable as you are.
I'm just
Social.
loud. I'm just loud. I'm loud. That's how I started the podcast, everybody. I was home for quarantine, and she was like, "Hey, why don't you go talk to somebody else, like make a podcast or something?" And I was like, oh, "Okay, that's a great idea." So I ran out and did it.
Mm-hmm.
No. All right, so at the 1 hour mark, we're going to start wrapping it up. We were talking about the teenager and the cell phone because we have lived through this. We're going to, Lord willing, live through it 3 more times. If you have a teenager or you have somebody who's about to inherit a cell phone or purchase a cell phone or obtain a cell phone, best of luck to you. Don't let the fear lead you down the wrong path. Don't become crazy with it. As she continues to point at me, trust your parenting, trust your skills, trust your children. Like Monica said, use certain instances as lessons. You're going to be just fine. All right. So that's it from Monica and I. We'll see you all soon. All right. Bye bye.
Adios.